Okay, so we're back for part 2 of the Red Frankenstein. And we were talking about zoos. Here's an interesting aspect. So I was just in Sedona, Arizona. And I'm out in the National Forest land, like I was telling you. But what you realize is that I'm essentially in the domain of all these other entities. The plants, the soil, the cacti, right? The massive packs of coyotes, the elk that are coming through. I'm only there borrowing that space for a moment. I really don't have control over that flow of nature. I've just made the choice that, okay, I'm gonna be in their realm, their playground, their office, and you have to really function by their rules. If I'm gonna sit outside and be stupid, probably I'm gonna have to deal with some wild animals that are coming after me, right? Whatever it might be.
Right.
But we've almost detached ourselves with things like zoos where we create a false domain, where we've taken over an area of nature, driven out things that naturally belong there, and then we try and put things back into these concrete areas and fill it with nature. So we're essentially pushing them out of their natural domain that we should be just borrowing from, right? Because no one really owns it. And then we claim a false ownership of it, and then we're going to take these animals and try and put them back into these cages, into these zoos, whatever these things might be. And at that point, what you find is that there's no real respect for sort of creational design and creational relationships. There's the detachment from it. And so everything with our science, with the way we build our cities, with society is essentially this idea of separation.
Yes.
It's a huge separative thing. And then science is like, oh, well, how do we do these experiments to, again, take a borrowed domain, but make it ours, to take ownership over it? You don't own the chimpanzee. You don't own its free will, right? But the thing is, we have these ideas, these structures about how things should be, rather than actually recognizing them as they are. And then we're going to run an experiment to say, let's try and force these aspects of nature into essentially our false reality.
Well, Raw talks about this in the Law of One. He talks about how we interact with second density beings.
Yeah.
And he says that they respond to us, plants and animals respond to us when we're caring, when we care for them, like plants if you care for them. And it reminds me of analogy of the scriptures, and when we look in Genesis, when God had before, man started going against, creation and stuff like that. But in a perfect world, when God put humans on earth, according to the Bible, this is a Bible mythology, but I think it goes right along with this. The whole idea was God put them to take care of the lands. Like they named the animals. They never, it was to take care, till the land, it was all, and it was, as third density beings, it was our responsibility to make sure second density flourishes.
Yeah, it wasn't rake and restructure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was
kill and destroy.
No, it was be a part of and continue to learn, right?
Because they, like Ross said, they respond, and Raw was talking about, and I have to get the exact quote, but the way he's talking about it, it's like a positive net for all for the second and the third. So for us, it helps us.
Yeah.
Because it's learn, teach, learn, love, light. It's helping us, and then they're responding to the care that we give. Like conservation, like something like this, like making sure the chimpanzees have a place to live.
Yeah.
Not putting fences around horses, and we kill 3,000 horses.
Unnecessarily. It doesn't need to be there.
We do shit like this
horses,
all the time. Yeah. And understanding that there are ways to solve the Earth's biggest problems if we get our egos out of the way.
Yeah.
But we have to put creation first.
The thing, you have to recognize what already is, rather than say, well, I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to define it myself.
It's like a parent. It's like a parent with a child. You created the child. It's your responsibility to nurture that child and bring it up in the way that it to be a productive human. So you can control it, you can beat it, you can abuse it.
Yeah.
You can lock it in cages. You can make it do manual labor. You can make the child do manual labor for you.
Yes.
Never pay it anything. Nope. You can do all these horrific things, but in the end, what product do you get?
You get a very negative product.
And it's the same way when we look at our responsibility as third density beings, especially going into fourth. How do we respond to those things that how do we respect the free will of a second density
Yeah. How do we
being.
recognize the amorals? How do we recognize what creation is actually doing naturally and not really stepping on it, not putting a fence around it?
Because you can learn from second density because there's millions and millions of years of evolution that happen that will teach us exactly how we should respond.
That's exactly correct. And you know what's kind of funny is that like the Earth incubates us as human beings.
Yes.
It's naturally a mother in and of itself.
Yes.
But we're just beating the shit out of the thing that gives us life. Like, what do you think's going to happen? You know what I mean? You see what it does at a smaller level. It's the same thing at a larger one. If you're just stabbing the womb that keeps you alive, well, the nutrients, the blood, everything's going to seep out, and it's going to have a negative reaction.
Yeah, and it's so funny because then you look at the data, like, this climate stability, it's so political. Like, you have liberals and they want to, have super high energy and they don't want to have only solar and wind. And then you have the conservatives and they want, they want, free energy and nothing, and just burning and tearing down forests. It's like, hey guys, if we get our egos out of the way and our politics out of the way, there's really common sense things that we can do right now.
Yeah.
Like, for one, to solve the energy problem, to get rid of coal and everything. I know people don't like to hear this, and I don't want to get on a rant on this, but we can do nuclear right now.
You can do it right now. And
it's super safe. And if all around the world, if we went to Africa and India and helped establish, what helps? You know what happens when people are able to work and have the ability to better themselves? Cheap energy helps somebody do that.
It's the basis of all.
It's
the absolute basis of all, right?
And we talk about this with Tartle a lot, and I encourage people to subscribe to that.
But
TCAST.
Biomass is still burnt more across the world than anything else. Literal cow dung is like the number one thing in India for keeping a house hot. But
so how do we give them right now free energy? We have tools, we have the ability to be able to come in and nurture and help and the waste that we create, probably by the time we would figure out how to handle that waste, I would imagine by the time, but just endlessly burning rainforests, for our own, are just throwing up mass amounts of dark clouds. I mean, why does LA have fog over it during COVID? There was none.
Right.
That's us. Humans did that.
It's humans doing it. So let's do one more metaphor, and then we can move on to the
Get
next
back to
part
the
of
red Frankenstein.
There is a baby that's being incubated by a mother, right? If the baby starts to take more calories than what the mother can actually, produce, essentially ingest to give so that thing can grow, it's going to end up killing the mother.
Yes.
Calorie is energy. So what happens when we have billions of human beings walking around on the earth, taking more calories out of it than it can actually generate? It's basic math. These are basic systems, right? But people don't recognize the simplicity and the danger of what we're doing because the effects are longer. So for them, it's like, well, if it doesn't hurt me today, like what difference does it make?
Well, especially if you're on the lower end of Maslow's hierarchy, you just want to survive.
You just want to survive.
I'm not concerned about the climate.
I can't focus on the climate.
No.
I'll burn biomass.
Yeah.
I'll burn tires.
I need this right now.
Doesn't matter.
To be warm.
That's precisely correct. So a lot of these issues is that, one, it's the structure of how we look at this and where our priorities currently are. Our priorities are totally out of whack at a fundamental level. And the ones that use the most amount of resources have absolutely no regard for the long-term effects. If they did, we wouldn't have these issues. They have zero regard for long-term effects.
But I think that's taking an undeveloped country, making it, when a country becomes developed, then they start thinking about these issues. When you have cheap energy, when you have education, those are two things you would look at. You could take right now, and if you could put cheap energy in Africa and put education, tons of amounts of education, and you gave everybody technology, the internet, and I guarantee you right now there is children in Africa that would love to go to school.
Oh my God, they would absolutely love to go to school.
And there's no school. There's no availability for them to get an education. I guarantee if you said, hey, dude, you got to get on this square box and push a bunch of keys and you can provide for your family. Really? Give me one of those boxes. Yeah, or how do I earn one of these boxes? What do I got to do?
Yeah. But the thing is, people are marching 20 kilometers to go get fresh water.
Or you get these liberal Hightower people that sit on this thing, and they're like, well, let's just make energy higher. Let's just
tax the shit out of it.
Yeah, tax the shit
Let's
out
make
of it.
the thing expensive. That is a fundamental basis of need for everybody across the globe.
Well, I mean, you've talked about thermodynamic. I mean,
geothermal energy.
I mean, there's
geothermal.
so many opportunities that we have in ways that we can go, and it's just sad because this is what happens. Like when we see Red Frankenstein here, you guys need to watch part 1 first before
Ilya Ivanov,
this controversial scientist and researcher, trying to take, and this is what it says in the article. Listen to this. Some would say that his experiments challenge the laws of nature by creating animal hybrids that were never seen before. Challenge the laws of nature. You're not challenging nature.
You can't challenge nature. You are nature. That's just like challenging yourself.
Yeah. How do you?
In a very negative sense. The challenge is the idea of control.
We're not separate.
No, and that's what they think. They think it's such a separate approach that we can dice everything up into boxes, right? And then it's like, okay, now I want to take this box and put it together here. No. They're all inextricably interlinked, right? And every time, it's a stepless transition between everything.
Yes.
But they think everything's just blocked off. Right? Like I'm dealing with cubes, and if I shift them around, I can make it work to my benefit.
Yeah, and speaking of to make it work for his benefit, Ivanov, this controversial scientist that was creating these human chimpanzee hybrids, he knew if he went to the Bolshevik government that he could manipulate them to fund his experiments, because at the time they were promoting they were trying to get rid of religious leaders, trying to get rid of religion. You know, communism doesn't want religion.
No.
You know, because the state is your god.
But what did people want at the time? They wanted like longevity. What the hell was it called? It had another name.
Well, we
for
want
it.
that now.
No, we wanted it now, but this was a time when people are like, oh, they're experiments that really, truly, we can make ourselves live longer.
Yeah, so the Bolshevik government at this time, they were like, hey, so he presented before the Academy of Sciences there in Russia, this is a way to validate Darwin's theory that humans originated from apes. So he proposed that if he proved Darwin right, then it would be a very big blow to the staunch forces of religion.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. Let's just, again, pin science against religion. And if we do that, that'll be for the government's benefit, because we can get rid of all those people that are just, bowing down to some sort of god, which is preventing the government from getting what they want.
Yeah, and then in the 1990s, he was all forgotten because he died. He died of I think he died of a stroke in 1932.
Yeah.
But in the 1990s, it made headlines again, and Ivanov was referred to as the Red Frankenstein. This news also gave rise to speculations in the media. We know how this goes.
We love that.
Suggesting the presence of secret societies and evil experiments to create monsters during the Soviet period. You have to. And this is what the article says. Conspiracy theories have suggested that Soviet ruler Joseph Stalin was interested in creating a powerful Ape Man Army. You have to know. This is not a conspiracy theory. I've studied Stalin. Yep. I've read books on him. I have books just on him. That guy would do whatever it takes to win a war.
Anything.
He killed his own people.
I know. They were eating each
You
other.
think Hitler was bad? Read about Stalin.
Yeah, Stalin was just horrific.
Yeah, I mean,
he literally had
tens of millions of people.
His own country was eating each other.
There's pictures online.
Actually eating each other. They were selling a human meat market for
he
people to eat.
He purposely starved out Ukraine on purpose. They have pictures of, and we've talked about this before, markets and stuff where they're selling human parts for food. Yeah. I mean, that's how bad it got. And you could see people laying dead on the street everywhere. Yeah. Like you'd walk around, there's pictures of this. You'd walk around in Kyiv and these areas and just see all these, dead bodies. And he did that. I know Hitler put him into concentration camps. He just created a concentration camp out of one big country.
Yeah, that's what he did. Yeah.
and then you have our president and everybody else is hanging out with Stalin.
It's insane if you think about the scale of it. Look how big Russia is.
I know.
Not that all of it's populated, but it's absolutely nuts, that whole idea.
Yeah, so I guarantee you Stalin had scientists and they were doing freak experiments. I guarantee you. You think Hitler was doing weird shit?
Hitler was doing the weirdest stuff.
Yes, yeah, and we're going to
shoving his people full of all types of drugs, and they were taking a ton of bullets, and then they're going out looking for the spear of destiny.
Yeah,
right.
Which we're going to get into the UFO and Hitler connection. We've been studying it, and so that's going to be soon.
A lot of good stuff on that.
Yeah, and channeling. He had a channeler, and Hitler was
beautiful woman.
Yeah, in those time frames. Henry Ford was fascinated with her. Thomas Edison was fascinated with her. They are all trying to get with her.
Yeah, real fascinated.
So it had been suggested that Bolshevik leaders who approved Ivanov's work were actually interested in rejuvenation.
Rejuvenation, right.
This may not be as far-fetched as it seems. Ivanov had links to celebrated Paris surgeon Serge Varnamov. Well, we know he was with the Pasteur.
Yep.
So
Pasteur Institute.
Yeah,
so
this
any
is
of
all.
these. Yeah, they're all interlinked.
Who had invented a rejuvenation therapy, which was fashionable in the wealthy in the 1920s, which we have now. You have David Sinclair, and you have all these guys that are creating, which this dude keeps, every time I see him on a podcast, he looks younger. So he's figuring, he's in charge of Harvard.
Something.
Yeah, because he's like 50-something. He looks like he's in his 30s right now.
Remember the Oregon boxes people would sit in?
Yes.
Like, oh, yeah, it's actually helping heal your body.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about rejuvenation. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, so this has happened over and over again. It's funny because Kellogg.
The family?
He made cornflakes to be like, this is the craziest thing ever.
Just tell me this fact. This is awesome.
So Kellogg, he created cornflakes to be, you would go to his spa treatment area and you would only eat cornflakes 3 times a day and do all these spa treatments to heal yourself.
Really?
That's where cornflakes was originated from.
Get out of here. Did they still?
All
have
it
is the
is
spa still open?
Yeah, I doubt it. But, it's really interesting. He had some pretty wild ideas, which was cool back then. However, it seems unlikely that Soviet politicians would hide a rejuvenation project with an even more bizarre-sounding Humanzee experience. I believe they would do more. I believe they would do more towards wanting to create an Ape Man Army than a rejuvenation. Maybe a few of them wanted to live longer, but the whole idea of an Ape Man Army.
Yeah, if I get a bunch of silverback gorillas that can fly airplanes, drive tanks, and shoot machine guns, rather than just a
I can make these in a lab.
Yeah, rather than a 170-pound soldier.
Well,
soaking wet.
What would an ape man? What would the strength be of a Humanzee?
It would be the scariest thing ever. I wouldn't want to fight that army.
No, they would just be ripping you apart.
Yeah.
So, and we also have to realize people don't forget this, and we need to do episodes on eugenics in the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah. No, the whole idea was like, where are you going to get the best sort of who's got the best genetic line? And it's just like the whole idea is like, science is just doing whatever it can to. These are like the early days of like the superhuman. You know, this is where it kind of like it's got its fix.
Well, this is where hardcore racism came in with eugenics.
Oh,
and
most
Hitler
definitely.
So a lot of people don't realize this. A lot of the United States scientists, you can look it up right now. There is, and I think we've talked about this before, but there is state fair pictures of Society of Eugenics here in the United States in the 1920s and 30s at state fairs showing Jews and black people as being apes,
like less,
and white people as being perfect. And Hitler got it from our scientists.
Of course,
he took eugenics,
and they were Harvard scientists.
Yes,
and they would you would go to the fair and they would measure your skull.
Yes, and then see,
and they would measure your nose length, your profiles, and everything. And they said, nah, sorry.
Well, you see it even in Django, the movie. You know, Leonardo DiCaprio.
They weren't off.
He's like has the little hammer or whatever, and he's pulling. He's like, this part is what makes them submissive, and this part is what.
No, I know.
This is all eugenics,
and that all came from Harvard.
It's the funny part. So not funny. It was horrific, but
no, it's hilarious that Harvard's the leading authority.
Yes, yeah.
But they're like, eugenics. This is what it is.
But the Bolsheviks were looking at this not just to discredit religion, but also they wanted to create a perfect Soviet worker. So in communism, you need workers. Yeah. You need widgets.
You need people that just work without question.
Yeah, and so, they thought that it would speed up the spread of desirable traits such as a willingness to work communally, which I've never seen chimpanzees.
I've never seen them willing to work.
No,
they're territorial.
Could you imagine a Humanzee, what it would be like? I mean, just think about that. Like it would be stronger than every other human.
Yeah.
It would be
ultra territorial, super
emotional, because chimpanzees are extremely emotional.
It'd be a cannibalist.
They just rip each other's heads off when they got pissed off
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then the males mate with 15 different females at once. Could you imagine that mess?
It'd just be like violence and fucking
the whole time. And the Soviets have been like, wow, this really got out of control. You know what I mean?
You create millions of these, see what happens.
I really wonder.
This would be Planet of the Apes for real.
It'd be legit Planet of the Apes. Like, I wonder what those conversations were like when they're all sitting around a table, like, is this a good idea?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? And they're all like started agreeing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. Because one guy said it and they don't want to say no because they don't want to get shot.
So I want to end this. I think this is really cool. There was another dude, an American psychologist, there was an Orange Park laboratory in Florida.
Yes.
In the 1920s. His name was Gordon Gallup.
Yeah.
And he claimed that they successfully bred a human-chimp hybrid. Gallup claims his former university professor told him about the work and that the researchers involved had almost immediately second thoughts about the moral and ethical considerations and euthanized the infant. They said they actually created one.
Yeah, so, and when they say euthanizing the infant, the cells lasted so long. Remember I talked about the radio signal in the previous episode? If when you have a divergence, they continue to separate. They'll never come together. So when you're breeding these things in petri dishes or what have you, the cells will get to a point where they can't reproduce further under their own energy.
Yeah.
Because the signals don't align.
Yeah.
And so that euthanizing or whatever they want to call it, they probably just killed the cells in the petri dish.
Yeah, and that's what they, in 2019 this happened. There was an international team of researchers.
Oh, here we go.
Chimera embryos.
Chimera?
Yeah, chimera.
Do you know what a chimera is? It's a monster from Greek mythology. What
Containing
are they talking
both
about?
human and monkey cells. This is 2019.
Why did they say
what is this? How long ago is this? 2022?
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I don't understand. A chimera is like a lion-headed, fire-breathing, goat-bodied.
That's what they called it. In 2019, it was reported in ELPAIS, ELPAIS,
Okay.
that an international team of researchers created chimera embryos containing both human and monkey cells. The controversial project was conducted in, guess where? China.
Oh, yeah.
To
Why
avoid
not?
legal issues. Its ultimate goal was to grow viable organs for transportation into humans. So now the idea sounds good.
Oh, so you would want to, okay. So if I could harvest a heart from a cow and stick it in a human, we're good to go.
Yeah, but the embryos, which were grown into vitro, were only allowed to develop
In vitro.
in vitro.
They're just in a little dish.
Were only allowed to develop up to 10,000 cells, at which points the researchers interrupted the study or killed it. Scientists and ethicians say that there are huge numbers of concerns involved in letting this work proceed.
What?
The work was published in detail in the journal Cell in 2021. Last year, this work that happened in 2019 was published in a scientific journal.
I want to find that journal. I want to find that article.
Also, in 2021, last year, a team led by French biologist Pierre Salvatore published details of their attempt to create human-monkey chimeras. The French researchers only managed to grow an embryo composed of up to 10 human cells and 250 monkey cells, which lived for 7 days.
See, that's my point. Nobody can really, just because there's a relationship doesn't mean that the things are fundamentally going to work together.
Well, I mean, the whole idea of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It worked, but what did you create?
A monster. That's all it was.
And what was he? I mean, I think this is a great analogy. It's like he was an abomination to creation.
Yeah, he was an amalgamation of all these things put together. In Frankenstein, who the doctor was, had his creation, which was this thing.
Yes.
Right? Mary Shelley wrote that book, I think, or something like that. If something's dead, it's dead. You can't just put life in it. Okay, you can't just electrify shit with life, because the idea came from experiments where they would strap electrodes to like frog arms and stuff like that, and they would twitch because it's just muscle stimulus. That's what's going on. It's just electrical signals allow me to move my muscles, But we get these ideas that because there's a relationship, they think something must be deeper.
Right.
But all there is just a simple relationship. Most of the time, it's not deeper. We go so far out on the branch that we get lost from the trunk of the tree.
Well, it's so stupid, too. It's like Raw talked about we can live to 300 years.
Yeah.
Why aren't we working on that? We don't need to fuck chimpanzees and shit.
You know what? You don't want to know why? Their idea is that if an organ fails, we'll just keep putting new ones in, and that will allow us to live. But our death happens at a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
It's initiated hormonally in the head, and then that triggers the cells to start to die.
Yes, yeah.
You can't just start putting more organs into something that's dead, right? That's creating that Frankenstein. It will cease to exist.
Yeah, it's like I can pump myself full of steroids.
Yeah,
and work out a whole shitload, but I'm going to die in 10 years.
Much earlier.
But I can be huge and monstrous, and but what did I do to my body? I accelerated it to the point.
Correct.
Of my organs are growing, everything's growing. Yeah, I can take human growth hormone. Human growth hormone's amazing. You can take it right now, and you'll feel 10 years younger.
Yeah,
but you're accelerating. You're making everything like fucking red line.
Your cellular exhaustion is going to be so much higher.
Yes.
Your your timeline, which we all need to recognize is
Yes.
limited. Okay. That's the issue. You create. And when you look at people like David Sinclair, he's not like, oh, I need to harvest more organs.
Yeah, no.
That's just not what it is.
He's going on he's finding those areas that, because he views aging as a disease.
It is a disease.
And so how he's taking it from
that is
scientific,
fundamentally so correct.
because it creates, I mean, if you think about it, it's a disease. So his whole idea is, how do we find ways where we can not have this disease?
Yeah. Or essentially,
You're not going to live, a long time, but how can we live, if he can get us to 100, and then from there, like Raw said, I mean, if we have the potential to live to 300, I mean, and the Bible talked about, there was people living that long in the Bible times.
well,
I mean,
the Pleiadian live up to 1,000.
yeah. So
They have
I mean,
no genetic issues.
who would still be alive? Would Benjamin Franklin still be alive?
Yep.
Yeah. Thomas Edison.
Yeah. I mean, if they were living the full
How
out
wise
life,
would they be?
think about how much you
Wouldn't
learn.
that be cool if the founding fathers were alive now and they're like, hey guys,
Yeah.
this shit is all fucked up.
but here's
Well,
the-
it never got to
But
this
here's
point.
the difference at this point. You have your memory of the past.
Yes.
You have such a record which you can test against.
Oh yeah, the data sets would be.
Your evolutionary curve for like consciousness evolution would be dramatic. Like for us, it takes us a long time to build a foundation of understanding our world. So imagine once you have that foundation and then you start applying it to everything, you go to the moon.
Yeah, maybe that's the way that fourth density comes into being, is through longevity.
Well,
And then
it-
people are getting smarter, more wiser, living longer.
Yeah. But we also have to figure out how not to kill each other.
The red Frankensteins.
One of the greatest diseases is us just killing each other, whether it be through climate or all these other,
It's constant, bro.
indirect
It's
things.
like 20 years in Afghanistan? Really?
Oh man, it's brutal.
For what? Oh, we didn't have a terrorist attack? That's your excuse?
Yeah, well,
How many people did you kill in Afghanistan?
that's true. How many people have you killed? Yeah, just not just Afghanistan, but everything.
Yeah. It's just crazy. It's our response is should not be violence, the first response. You don't come out the gates just wheeling fucking weapons.
No, it's because it's just fear.
Yeah.
They don't align with, again,
It's ego and fear.
this false domain which you have established.
So to close it out, one of the things that I want people to understand, and you can talk about this real quick, is our sponsors.
Yes.
So
So
go
first
ahead.
sponsor, turtle.co. I think the best part about this is that it's not a domain for the rich. It's not a domain for people that have resources. It's something which everybody can share in, where we can all come together. We can share our data through the work we all do and actually receive compensation for doing that work.
Yeah, and you can donate on our website now. You can click on the button, go to PayPal and donate monthly to Higher Density Living
Yep.
as 501c3. Take that off your taxes. If you can't do that, you can do a free thing for us.
Yeah.
And explain that, how they can donate to Higher Density Living through Tartle.
Yeah, here's a cool
For free.
part. So when you're on Tartle and you are sharing your data, which people want to pay you for, you can immediately say, I want to channel those earnings towards a not-for-profit or a charity that I think is beneficial for everyone else. So if you care about educational access, like at Higher Density Living, you can choose to donate your data earnings towards Higher Density Living. If you care about the oceans, you can donate to the Seven Gyres Institute. If you care about,
Law of one.
yeah, the law of one, people's free will, donate to that.
Yeah.
Donate to that level of awareness. You have that ability to do that through the sharing of your data and using Tartle.
And it's TARTLE.co.
And it's completely free to use.